Welcome back to my third episode where I'm inviting you to watch me attempt to recreate an old art piece from the ancient times of 2022. I'm Jillian, a psychologist turned artist who wants to help you to embrace the mess and magic of watercolor. Let's jump into the supplies that we'll be using. Let's kick off the first flower with a really light wash of blue. I'm using my 1/2 inch flat brush to help me with creating the outside shape of the flower, and while the paper is still wet, I'm adding in some paint and pigments so you get those nice soft blends and bleeds. Then I changed over to my size 6 round brush to help me with my stems and also adding in smaller details while it's still wet. Next, we're going to be working on this beautiful pink flower, and because the reference photo is so small, I'm literally just painting flower shapes, and I think that this is such a great way to practice painting loosely, especially when you've got lesser details in your reference photo. You are able to paint less details, and I think that this is a great way to practice. And I'm just painting some of these triangular shapes, adding in some deeper shadows, and also alternating with adding my greens in between as well, because I do notice that the flowers have a greenish cone towards the tips. So the green that I've selected here is Chrome Oxide by Sennelier, and it's an opaque version of watercolor. It is not gouache, but if you look at watercolor properties, some watercolor tubes are actually more opaque than others. So that's something for you to think about when you are adding layers to your paint. And let's take a look at this flower here. It's starting to dry. I'm just going in with some dry brush strokes and also very fine strokes, still using my small round brush, keeping in mind that there are some parts of the flower that is still damp. And when you have that in mind, this would give you the capacity to think about whether you want your colors to be blending in or if you want your shadows to be more defined. Use very light strokes. Remember to hold your brush lightly. And I really love the details that are coming and forming with this flower. You can see how the greens and the purple blues kind of align with each other. So these flowers, I've actually started to do them early in the morning before my kids get up. And this has given me some energy in the morning where I'm actually fired up because I've got so many ideas, and I feel like I also get to discover and be with myself before I actually show up with my kids. And I feel like this little routine that I've developed where I would just add 1 or 2 flowers to my painting in the morning has gotten me looking forward to waking up, and I'm typically not a morning person. So this has been such a fun little project that I've taken on, and I'm glad that I managed to record the process so that you can also get to see it. I realized that I didn't record the process for this pink flower, but you can see that I used a really faint pink wash, similar to the way I did the blue flower on the top, and I added in some bleeds and blends while it was still wet. And now the flower is fully dry, so I'm basically adding in a couple of layers just to indicate shadows and light in the flower. I'm using darker values of pink, and I've also added a green center. So I like to add some petals around the edges just to indicate a petal that is beneath that flower. And I'm also darkening my greens for my stems and my leaves. This gives it some depth and dimension. Take your time when you're doing layering and shadows, because I feel like this is really a part where you get to define the flower and make it your own. And it doesn't have to be exactly like the reference photo. I really enjoyed painting these three flowers with you today. We're going to be meeting again, and this time we're going to be painting a couple more. As your page starts to slowly fill up with these blooms, I hope that you also grant yourself kindness in showing up regardless of how your blooms look. And until then, I'll see you in episode 4. Bye!